Hello, today I'm going to be talking about sissy pornography, and a common question that can come up is, does watching sissy porn mean that I'm gay? So sissy pornography is something that I looked into a little bit many years ago on Instagram. There were these things called sissy captions back then. I doubt it's still there. I don't really want to find out. I'm not going to go down that path and try to discover whether it's there or not. But in the peak of my porn addiction, this is something I would occasionally look at. And I want to talk about this because it's a problem that impacts a lot of people. Now, if you're impacted by this problem in particular as well, feel free to do the compulsion test, leave your number, I'll give you a call, we can have a little chat, see if I can help you further. So, the questions that you may have if you're struggling with a sissy porn addiction is, does watching sissy porn mean that I'm gay? How much of my problem is even to do with porn? Do I stay in this relationship with a woman? Am I in denial? Why do I look at this kind of content? So what we need to do is we need to start off by understanding this problem in a very rational way using first principles. So you keep engaging in this behaviour, if you're watching this sissy porn, you're engaging in this behaviour and you probably want to stop it, right? It's probably got these horrible consequences. You're probably feeling some shame around it. You probably feel like it doesn't really align with your sexual tastes. And no matter how hard you try, you keep going back to it and relapsing. So it's completely eroding your self-trust and your self-image and, how you feel about yourself, basically. Now, the problem is, most people online, they're going to go on like Reddit or something, they're going to ask themselves these questions. But none of these questions I've just talked about are actually going to help you. Literally none of them. Like, they're not going to get you anywhere good, because the problem to solve isn't like these questions, but how do we deal with the addictive part of the mind? So there's these different parts in our minds. We have the rational part of the mind, you want to stop it. You got the child self, probably a bit scared because you keep doing this behavior, you want to stop. And then you've got the addictive part of the mind. And the addictive part of the mind is probably going to ask you, well, am I gay now because I've been watching this sissy porn? The thing is, the addictive part of the mind wants you to adopt a position of helplessness. This is how it can keep you relapsing. So it wants you to feel confused. It wants you to feel unsure of yourself. It wants you to feel maybe a bit anxious and scared and a bit all over the place mentally. It wants you in that state, because if it can get you in that state, it can get its fix. It can get what it wants. It can get more of the compulsive behaviour. So the real problem is right now, if you're relapsing to sissy porn, you're just strengthening the addictive neural pathways. You have addictive neural pathways right now. So I haven't looked at any of that sissy stuff for years and years now. It doesn't even cross my mind. It honestly doesn't. And the truth is, when I was looking at that stuff on Instagram, it would actually lead to me wanting to look at it more, because it led to this like really sort of extreme kind of mind mood altering experience where I'd feel like this shame and this nervousness, and like my mind would be all over the place, and like a lot of norepinephrine would be released. So like I would just feel like scared and anxious and like this really weird confused state. And I kind of got addicted to that mind mood altering experience. Like that's what I wanted to feel that like almost like fear from like seeking out the content that was so extremely novel, that also was within kind of the parameters of being like legal content and nothing like on a actual porn site. So basically what I was doing is I'd like tricked myself, or the addictive part of the mind had tricked me to believe that looking at any sexual content that isn't on a porn site is okay. And so what I ended up doing, due to like the tolerance cycle and being like deep in a porn addiction, is I'd end up seeking out the most like perverse, the most novel, the most extreme kind of content I could possibly find on a social media site. And I did that for years, and that's what led to me eventually finding like the sissy content, and like that would have the most extreme effect on me. And I don't know if I even like actually enjoyed looking at it at any point. It was more just that I wanted more and more and more, and that's really how addiction works, right? So the problem to really solve, and the only problem you need to solve, is how do you actually stop watching this stuff? Like, how do you stop seeking out this kind of content? That's the only thing you need to solve, is stop relapsing to the sissy porn. And if you stop doing this, it's going to change your neural pathways, and you'll get to a position like me where you actually feel comfortable even talking about it, because like I'm going to have family and friends and stuff who are going to hear this video probably, but you'll be able to talk about it comfortably, knowing from a place of empowerment and a place of strength, like I'm good now, I'm no longer looking at that content. I no longer even really want to look at that content. It's just like that desire has kind of changed. And even if I did have the desire to look at this sort of stuff, I know how to deal with that. So it's not a problem, and you just have complete self-trust and integrity now. So that's the only problem you need to solve, is like when you stop looking at something and you really change your neural pathways by repeatedly reframing the way you think over and over and over, and you experience some desire without acting on it, you're able to get to a position where the neural pathways do change and you have that like self-trust and feeling of, okay, I'm good now, I'm no longer worried about this. And there'll be people online who want to continue in these questions, and they'll be like, oh, well, maybe it's because you're gay, or like, oh, maybe it's because of this, or actually, you're in denial or whatever. And, I could go online and swim in those kind of unanswerable questions for eternity, but it's not going to get me to where I want to be in my life. And where I want to be in my life is just simply making good, rational choices moment by moment. That's what I really feel like I need. There's a good quote by Marcus Aurelius, actually, who said, all you need in life are these: certainty of judgment in the present moment, action for the common good in the present moment, and an attitude of gratitude in the present moment for anything that comes your way. So lovely little quote there. But yeah, just to conclude then, these questions are not the real problem, but people will like swim in these questions like indefinitely because of the addictive part of the mind and how all this works, and because the addictive part of the mind wants you to stay in this cycle of relapsing. But the real problem is acting on the desire despite the negative consequences. That's the real problem. Once you stop acting on the desire, you no longer really have these questions. I never have these questions anymore, and that's because I don't act on the desire anymore. Okay, so it is absolutely possible to overcome a sissy porn addiction. Hopefully this YouTube video, this podcast can kind of help you shift your thinking a little bit. I just really would love to urge you to stop like searching online to try find answers to the problem that isn't the real problem that you want to be solving. Like 99% of sort of problem solving in life is understanding the problem well and like accurately. Once you can do that, you can then devise a solution and solve it. But that's never really going to happen if you're misunderstanding a problem. And I used to have like questions like this before when I was back in the addiction and I was struggling with this content, and I needed to be taught a lot of stuff to understand what the problem even was and then how to solve the problem, which was like engaging in a behaviour that I wanted to stop. Hopefully that makes some sense. As I say, take the compulsion test if you want to understand how much this problem's impacting you, and maybe get on a call with me as well. Cheers for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.